matter of student SPEL 2122-5, the board in closed session took action to approve a settlement agreement arising out of a dispute related to special education for the student with a total monetary value of $6,000. The board voted to approve the settlement agreement, being 5-0 with 0 abstentions. In the matter of student SPEL 2122-6, the board in closed session took action to approve the settlement agreement arising out of a dispute related to special education for the student with a total monetary value of up to $35,000. The board voted to approve the settlement 5-0 with 0 abstentions. All right, now we are going to item 6, our patriotic exercise. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Catherine Nix and Mason Schofield from McKinley.
Good evening, everybody. I am here proud to stay with my fifth graders for another 15 or so hours. I have here Catherine Nix and Mason Schofield, who are going to lead us in the pledge in both English and in Spanish and Espanol. And the one thing I did ask them to do while they're here is share their favorite memory of McKinley, since they will be leading us after tomorrow. So come on up, introduce yourselves, say your favorite things, and then you can lead us in the pledge. How's that?
Hi, my name is Catherine. My favorite memory at McKinley was when we first met our reading buddies, because we then read to them, and that was something really special to me.
Hello, my name is Mason, and my favorite memory at McKinley was the 5th grade versus staff kickball, because it was fun playing against all the teachers that I had over the years, and including playing against the principal.
I think that was our favorite memory, because they beat us. All right. So what do you say to everybody?
Please stand and put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la República de una nación indivisible, una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
President Wong, page 1. Take one more. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. For roll call, Lisa, Elizabeth, Doug,
Here.
Dan, Florence here. Item 8, approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second? Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. Item 9, approval of minutes from May 31st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I second.
Who was that? Dan? Dan, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 10, public statements related to agenda items. At the discretion of the Board of Trustees, the public may address the board on non-agenda items and/or agenda items. If you choose to make a public statement, you must be present at the meeting and complete the blue request to address the Board of Trustees form and provide it to the superintendent's assistant. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. If your comment is on an item that is not on the agenda, then you will be asked to speak during the public statements related to non-agenda topics at the end of the meeting. If your comment is on an item that is on the agenda, then you will be called on to speak at the time of the agenda item. All right, item 11, union statement.
President Wong, pardon me. We do actually have one address to the trustees about our general celebrations, and it's coming to us from Angela Kowalski. If the board would please give her 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come. I actually bring gifts tonight on behalf of a BCE sponsor. Raziel Unger is a local realtor. He is both a founder circle member of our endowment and a Fall Drive sponsor. He has commissioned local artist Del Perkins to paint all the landmarks in Burlingame, including our beautiful Burlingame schools. He has then taken those prints and framed them and would like to gift them to our schools and our principals. So I have those prints tonight, but before I do, I just wanted to mention that Raziel was a Burlingame student, graduated BIS and BHS, and Dale Perkins taught art in our Burlingame schools from 1963 to 1989. So it's a really deep connection, full circle moment. So I have the prints, I'd love to show them to you. I'm not sure if you'd like to see them all.
Those are beautiful.
And so I have them all here and we'll work to get them to the school.
Yeah, could you perhaps leave them out along the side so everybody can see them?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are beautiful.
Thank you, Angela. All right, so back to union statement, Burlingame Education Association. Is there anyone here to make a statement for BEA?
Rosanna?
So we've had quite a year. It has been absolutely fantastic to be back in this classroom this year. And I know all of the scholars at BIS can attest to that. Some of the highlights from this past semester, much like our 5th grade friend who loved the staff versus students, many of our students also love the staff versus basketball. And I think also because the students actually beat the staff. I'm a little too short to play. So we also had a Back to the 80s musical that was absolutely incredible. We have a lot of great talented artists and dancers and singers at BIS, and they performed right here at Franklin, and it was a great show. I also head up leadership at BIS, and leadership actually took on quite a bit for coming in late to the year. We actually just hosted a carnival last Friday. Our 8th graders hosted booths for our 6th and 7th graders as a way to give back to BIS and a way to say, all right, we understand what it is like. Now it will be your turn. Have fun. And it was a lot of fun. I think the students had a lot of great time. We had a lot of great booths there. Leadership also hosted a program called Time Travel, which allowed students to get back in touch with their former selves and who they used to love before all the craziness took place, reimagine what their lives actually look like now and what it could continue to look like in the future. And Ms. Gilbert and I are actually looking forward to bringing it back for our incoming 6th graders next year to also help them transition into middle school. We also took on our PSA for bathrooms. Our 6th graders did that. And we started morning announcements, which also helped to re-engage our students. Some of the other things that we had going on, SAA had their food drive. Our 8th grade promotion is tomorrow, and our 8th graders are very excited. Their party was last Friday. They had a lot of fun. Hopefully, there was a lot of great pictures to go with that. And all our spring concerts for 6th, 7th, music and band were over the past couple weeks. And also our students did a great job with their instruments, learning new instruments that they came into it this year. Our choir did also an amazing job and helped to spark a lot of those elementary incoming students who want to get enter band or chorus when they come to BIS next year. So that is BIS for the roundup of this semester. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 12, statement of the principals. There are principals.
Good evening. This is a very exciting night for many reasons, but for the students and families waiting to be celebrated, I'm keeping this brief. It's been quite a year. 2021-22 school year took other duties as assigned to a whole new level for us all. We want to thank our teachers and classified staff for their incredible work to make this year possible. I know that I don't just speak for the principals, but for the teachers too. We are grateful to our parent volunteers, especially those that have been on campus from the start of the year to help us make lunch safe. Thank you to our PTAs, to BCE, and to all that have supported us this year. We survived many transitions on our way back to normal, and life does feel that way now on our campuses, whatever we define normal as. The last 2 weeks of school have been busier than ever with open houses, concerts, school activities, spirit days, end of year celebrations, finishing report cards, preparing for summer, and of course, promotions tomorrow on all of our campuses. We are proud of that all of our students have accomplished, they've persevered, and they've grown. They've made it through the first whole school year on campus since 2018-19. We wish our 5th and 8th graders the very best as they move on from our elementary schools to BIS and from BIS to high school. We know they're going to thrive and we will miss them. Thank you all for a fabulous year. We have one last day together, one more school night. Best of luck to you all.
Statement of our superintendent.
Good evening, trustees and community. Also brief and also just thanks. Thanks to all of our community members, PTAs. Keep volunteering, get the volunteers back next year. I know it's been tough this year getting volunteers. Keep working on it. And thank you to the principals and the staff and the teachers for making a successful year, a full year of instruction. A year ago at this time, we weren't sure that we could make that happen. And there were some times that testing a whole lot of kids and worrying about community spread just left us tired and stretched thin, but we made it. A couple of days left and promotion ceremonies tomorrow. Really exciting stuff. Thank you all and have a wonderful and restless summer. You won't get more communications from myself or the board or the principals. The community gets to rest a little bit too and have some time with their families uninterrupted. So enjoy your summer activities. Enjoy being with one another, and we'll enjoy our final meeting of the school year as well.
Did you say restless or restful?
Restful.
Okay.
It might be restless for
I
some.
thought I heard you say restless.
I might have said restless, but I meant restful.
Okay, yeah, restful sounds good. Okay, item 14, statement of board members. Start at the end. Dan.
I'll just be very brief since we have a full agenda. I just want to thank everyone, congratulate the 5th and the 8th graders. And a special thank you to all the parents that trusted us with your kids in a really challenging year. It's been really challenging to go to school for certain parts of this year. And so thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief as well. Not much to report since the last meeting, other than excited for all the kids, and I want to say thank you to the teachers and staff and volunteers that had a difficult year. I'm looking forward to 2 promotion ceremonies tomorrow, one for my Lincoln 5th grader as a parent, and then the BIS as a board member. So very exciting time of year.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, so also, so great to see all of you. I'm so excited about this celebration, and grateful to all the principals for and our community for all that we've done this past year. Since the last board meeting, I've toured Washington, McKinley, and Hoover. It was very exciting. It was right after the open house, so I got to see all the artwork and different objects on display. It was a really great time to visit. And then I also did go to Washington and BIS open houses. So again, it's just so great to get into the schools again and for parents to see what's happening. And thank you to the schools for being so welcoming when we had to transition so quickly at the end to suddenly having a lot of parent involvement. It's been really good for building our community. I also went to the jazz band concert, which was here, like this meeting, and also the BSD staff meeting, which was here. Thank you to Franklin for hosting so many events. It's been really appreciated. And my family and I attended the March for Our Lives on Saturday. I wanted to thank parents for representing our board at that meeting. I appreciate that. And so I'm looking forward to our promotions tomorrow and seeing all the 8th graders graduate and celebrating. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'll try to be brief as well. First, congratulations to all of our students and families that are here this evening. I also wanted to thank Principal Lawrence for allowing me to come and do a very last minute visit. I had so much fun, and I just wanted to say, if anyone thinks that this, I mean, our teachers are so tired. We know it's been such a long year, but I walked around last week and all of the classrooms were full on learning, doing projects. There was no pausing. They were just hard at work still on this very last week. It was pretty incredible. So thank you for letting me do that. I know it wasn't the greatest time to visit. And then lastly, just a lot of gratitude for another extraordinary year. Thank you to our principals, the district office, the PTA, the teachers, our staff, Dad's Club, BCE, parents, and especially our students. Big congratulations to all of our graduates that are getting promoted to middle school and our graduates that are moving on to high school.
Thanks, Lisa. I just wanted to make a reference to what Elizabeth was saying about the March for Our Lives rally that we attended on Saturday. And I wanted to give a shout out to one of our former BSD students, Lexi Levitt. She was one of 3 student organizers who put that together, and she was also one of, she made a very heartfelt speech during that rally, and you know, we couldn't be more proud that she was one of our BSD students. Just wanted to acknowledge her efforts there. Okay, so let's move on to an exciting item, celebration for students reclassified as Fluent English Proficient.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nate Wong, and I am the coordinator of assessments and special projects here for Burlingame School District. And today I want to explain to you what we're celebrating. It's something very exciting. It's called reclassification. And so when a student learning English as an additional language first enters our district, they're required to take the LPAC every year. And LPAC is short for English Language Proficiency Assessments for California. And they take that every single year until they are reclassified. And the process of being reclassified is actually quite a lengthy process, and there's a lot that goes into it. So first of all, a student needs to score proficient on the LPAC. They also need to score proficient on another test, whether it is a state assessment or a local assessment. There's also input from their teachers, as well as their parents, as well as our English language specialist team. So as you can see, there's quite a lot that goes into it, and it's a big achievement. So we are very, very proud to have invited all of our students being reclassified as Fluent Proficient in English. It's called RFEP, and there are some of them out here tonight that we'd like to recognize and give them an award as well. And then afterwards, we will take a picture. So the principals are going to announce the names of our honorees, starting with Burlingame Intermediate School. So I'd like to invite Erica Gilbert, Principal Erica Gilbert, up first.
Right, so they're gonna come in when when I call their name. All right, so we'd like to recognize Stephen Lanusa. Rui Louis. Stephen Huang. Kira Janbei. Mohammed Harsley. Camila Saldana. Cherise Kylie Francisco. Marcelo Vasquez. Gladys. What in my face? Gladys Aguilera. All right, and read the names of the students that are not here. Okay. I'd like to introduce Jude Lawrence, the principal at Franklin.
Okay, so we have wonderful students from Franklin. Here comes Mark Lynn. Layla Lang. We have Eric Zhang. And Baron Yu. That's all from Franklin this evening. I'm going to pass over to Laura Akshar, the principal of Lincoln.
All right, our first Lincoln Lion is Gavin Louis Nolasco. And Ian Zhao is also here. Ian? Maybe not. Okay. So we also have Adam Abualdora. Good job, Adam. And next we have Joy Shmueli from McKinley.
All right, tonight we have from McKinley, Vincent Idian. Sophia Castillo. Thank you, Sophia. Kana Kawano. Abraham Calderon. And next up, we have Mr. Matt Paveo from Roosevelt.
Hello, everybody. We have Sophia Lorenko. And we also have Mateo Vasquez. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Bowman from Washington.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in congratulating the following Washington Wildcats. Kareem Kostianyan. Lori Tang. Samaya. Zena Agazawi. Emily Lima. Flores Zapata Villanueva. And Ashley Costas Rivas.
We're gonna take over your picture today. Right here, 1, 2, 3. Hang tight. 1, 2, 3. And let's do one more. One eyes closed. And now a big smile. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so congratulations to everyone who just received a medal. Those are yours to keep. I had some questions about that. Those are yours to keep. Congratulations, families. We're going to read the names of the students who could not be here tonight, and then we will be done. And you're free to go after that, or you may stay. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, but these are the students who are not here. So we will start with Principal Eric Gilbert. And principals, if you could read the names that are not checked off on this list first, and then this is the big list of kids. Thank you very much.
All right, BIS Trojans, we have Stephen Huang, we have Kotaro Yamazaki, Junior Aurelio Rios, Inigo Atentar, Hope Awika, Alexander Bermudez, Kim Chen, Julian Kansavari, Fulton Deleuze, Dariana Diaz, Yitzi Gao, Alice Wang, Cheng Yat Kong, Dimitri Cookson, Jessica Lee, Wang Gao Lee, Maximiliano Lumelli, Annie Ma, Antonio Malagan, Jose Moreno, Ishan Naidu, Xiomara Rios, Eric Rodriguez, Angel Rojas, Andrea Sanchez, Mufid Shahade, Justin Ferris Shihade, Vivian Tran, Miran Ugar, Danny Bella, Benjamin Wong, Luis Yusuf Mastrella, Simone Zeltzer, and Yusuf Zira. Those are the students from BIS. I'd like to welcome Jude Lawrence, principal of Franklin.
Fun to recognize some of those names from when I was teaching them. Our students that went up last year. It's very, very fun. Okay, so from Franklin, Xander Lee, Mikhail Rahim, Mateo Braca, Hannah Iwasaki, Elena Pham, Mune Shainod, Sorsha Adame, Alice Antonitsin, Alexandra Bellostock, Curtis Fang, Catherine Feng, Erin Kim, Angela Kleineman, Celine Kwang, Harry Lay, Tiffany Pham, Mia Ricardo Barreto, and Sue Wang. I'm going to hand you over. Oh, who's going to do the whole thing? Hand you back over to Nate.
I'm going to announce our students from Hoover. So we have Emily Gim, Ryan Tam, Cordelia Tsai, and Tennyson Tsai. All right, and that's our students from Hoover. Next, I'd like to welcome Laura Abshore, principal.
Okay, so additionally, we have Najiba Araiza, Peter Grachev, Isabella Kishkat, Elise Wu, Athena Zhang, and Apollo Zhang. Oh, and next I will introduce Principal Joy Shmuel.
All righty, our Bulldogs are Abby Andreev, Brianna Berner, Gail Bodie, Noemi Castano, Tatiana Castro Petanera, Madison Gu, Kaden Herrera, Jalen Jian, Emma Kloster, Tal Morimoto, Rui Pierre, Anais Rigo, Aviana and Havana Ryan, Ashton Watkins Kwok, and Ryder Willis. And next up is Principal Matt Paveo from Roosevelt.
Okay. It is my pleasure to also announce that Unica Attentar, Roman Austria, Stephanie Canna, Jonathan Feldman, Lisa Lee, Emma Mai, Pedro Marquez, Nicholas Yan, William Yan, and Carolyn Yang, also named.
And the Wildcats who could not be here tonight, Marina Brunasova and Andre Sakharov. Congratulations to them as well.
All right, so I forgot to mention that we had 122 students this year that were reclassified as proficient, fluent, fluent proficient English this year, which is amazing. So that does conclude our ceremony for tonight. Thank you all for being here. You are free to go. Have a great evening, and hopefully see you.
All right, we're moving on to item 16, recognition of retirees.
Good evening. So at this time, the superintendent and the district would like to recognize staff on their retirement. These employees have a combined total of 32 years with the Burlingame School District. Their dedication to the district goes beyond appreciation, and their absence will be noticed. While we wish them the best on their next avenue of life, we will surely miss them. Nancy and Linda, you have taught future doctors, firefighters, scientists, and even teachers in your time. They have come through your classroom and will succeed because of you. At this time, we would like to recognize Nancy Sakamoto. When an employee retires with BSD, we show our appreciation to staff by acknowledging them and thanking them at the last board meeting of every school year. They are presented with a blue bowl that symbolizes the Burlingame blue that we have all come to know and love. The district would also like to recognize Linda Jacopoulos, who cannot be here today, but will be receiving her bowl. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to our retirees. Item 17, presentation of the H.J. Burns Award.
Thank you, President Wong. So tonight we honor our H.J. Burns Awards recipients. The H.J. Burns Award is the highest honor bestowed by the school district for volunteer service. And for the folks that we honor, it's not only an award just recognized by the school district, but our honorees will be receiving a framed certificate of thanks both from the assembly, our local assembly office, as well as from the state senate and the school district. And then we also engrave their names on a plaque that hangs in the district office. So it's recognized in a number of ways by ourselves as well as our state representatives. We have a number of H.J. Burns Awards recipients because one of them was a group effort, but we're going to start out with the honoring of Cindy Wright, which is going to be conducted by Trustee Mudd.
You out there, Cindy. On behalf of the Burlingame School District, I would like to present Cindy Wright with the H.J. Burns Award for her dedication to community service within the Burlingame School District. If you have had the pleasure of meeting Cindy, then you know that she is a force of nature, a fierce advocate for all children. She has worked tirelessly on behalf of every single child in our community. First and foremost, a mother to her beloved boys, Simon and Thomas, she began her work in the schools as room parent. She was a room parent not once, not twice, but every single year of her children's elementary school days. Not surprisingly, this led to a role on the PTA executive board as parent volunteer coordinator, a role in which she served 2 years. As her children grew, she became keenly aware of the public school funding disparity in our country and began volunteering for the Burlingame Community Education Foundation, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to benefit all of our children. Cindy spent 2 years as the BCE BIS site director. As her term ended, she decided her work was not yet over. Believing there was an opportunity for more growth within the foundation, she committed to serving on the first endowment council. She has served and is still serving in a 3-year term as BCE Council Endowment Trustee, playing a critical role in growing the initial $2 million endowment. This is all an extraordinary amount of work. However, it does not stop there. Over the last 6 years, she has also been in the role of the CDAC chair, the Special Education District Advisory Committee. As CDAC chair, she is instrumental in providing input to administration on district special education policies, programs, needs, and concerns. She acts as an informal mediator for families. She also hosts monthly educational programs during the school year, including weekends, hosting IEP 101s. Cindy was instrumental in helping to build Trojan Camp for our middle school children. In addition to this, she was also a part of Burlingame's Dyslexia Action Plan Committee, helping to create a plan for our students with dyslexia to create a path for success. In her spare time, she also built the CDAC website. Cindy's journey as a supporter of our schools and children inspired her return to school herself to obtain a credential as an advocate for students all over our county. When not doing this, she works for the Child Neurology Foundation, the American Diabetes Foundation, and the CDAP Institute, and Epilepsy Foundation. Cindy, what a gift you are to this community, to your sons, Simon and Thomas, to your husband, Dave. Your work has rippled into every single home in this town and beyond. You are the embodiment of generosity, and we are so thankful for the work you have done benefiting our children. The Burlingame School District would like to honor your exceptional work and thank you on behalf of the families, the school district, and the children.
Right there.
I'm much better at giving than I am receiving, so of course it's going to cheer up. It really has been a pleasure to serve the district. I'm sad about leaving. I'm not really, I'm excited for my kids, but I always made my kids my first priority, and I've been fortunate enough to have a consulting job that allows for that. I'm learning to be an advocate for these kids, something that in some ways comes very natural to me, but is complicated. So I learned a lot, and I'm just an honor to serve the district in as many ways as I could. Thank you.
Make sure I have one mic off and use the other mic. So our second award this evening is going to be done as a group, or at least a pairing, because two of the three folks that we're honoring are with us this evening. So for the past year and a half, behind the scenes in a number of my videos and announcements, you've seen the impact of their work. However, largely because they wanted to contribute quietly and privately, we've never acknowledged their work publicly. And that's going to change tonight because the majority of their work at this time has come to an end. And that is the group that we refer to as our medical advisory committee. The committee's actually had a number of members cycle in and out, but there's three that have been there the entire time since about the fall of 2020. I arrived in the school district. The three folks that we're going to honor tonight that we'll talk about briefly are Ramesh Jabari, Vivek Jain, and Shreya Shah. And two of them are with us this evening, and that's Shreya and Vivek. Ramesh was unable to join us. He's dealing with some issues at home, and he is with us in spirit. Shortly after my arrival to the district in the summer of 2020, we were, of course, at the height of the pandemic. We did not have a reopening plan, and we were having regulations coming at us pretty rapidly as far as health and safety. You can imagine that as public servants that specialize in education, that was overwhelming. That was just one of the issues that the district was dealing with. Ramesh, the gentleman that's not here this evening, deals in logistics for Stanford and specifically medical logistics, and reached out to me and said, you know, there's a big medical community in Burlingame. And although we don't want to do it publicly, we are perfectly happy to meet with you and explain all of this technical jargon, what all this stuff that's coming at you means, so that you can better navigate for the safety and welfare of our children as well as ourselves. Being new here, I didn't quite know how to react other than to say sure, because I really frankly needed the help. We were overwhelmed. We didn't know how to operate. We didn't know a lot of what was coming at us. And we had a combination of that time of nightly media updates, constantly changing CDC requirements, constantly evolving research about COVID-19 and the precautions that should be taken in the community, let alone in the school district. And then, of course, we started going through vaccinations, through testing rounds, through different types of testing, through evolutions and variations and mutations of the disease. And all of that was put on public education to navigate for the majority of our community. We became the center of getting out that information and making sure that our community had the information to remain safe. You can imagine that it doesn't matter how much education I have in the field of education, that was well above and beyond most of us in the school district to try to translate. So this committee of three managed to meet with me monthly, sometimes weekly, sometimes a couple of times a week, to make sure that we understood the science of what was coming out, how to navigate that science, how to implement testing and reporting in our school district, how to do so safely and ethically. These folks also stood up our community testing at the BIS, the testing testing pan. They stood up our community testing through PTA that was voluntary, free, and open to all. They made sure that we stayed safe. They read through our guidelines. They gave me prompts and information to communicate to the community in my weekly addresses, as well as in a lot of our official documents back to the county and the state. And they stood by to always give us input to make sure that we could do the best that we could in an incredibly difficult situation. So with that, I would like to recognize, and the school board would like to recognize the contributions of the medical advisory, I'm going to call it a team, it was never an official committee, that spent so much of their time and effort and energy setting up all of those things. And we are just getting down now 18 months into that very intense volunteer effort. The effects that you had on me, making sure that I knew what I was talking about, was huge, because that then translated to my principals and our staff, and my assistant superintendent and the district office, and us getting out clearly understood and safe guidelines to get us back. It was the reason that last year, when all of the other school districts were coming back part-time, Burlingame was back full-time. We did it safely, we did it effectively, and we've navigated it again this year. So for 18 months of very, at times difficult, at times argumentative, and controversial service that we've all tried to hash out what everything meant and the best thing to do for our community, the board would like to recognize Dr. Vinay King, Dr. Shreya Shah, and Dr. Ramesh Johari in absentia. Please come up and say a few words of acceptance. Here, first. Broadcast live.
Well, thank you. I just had to say one few things, which is, I think what I learned after looking at all of this is just the countless hours they've been behind the scenes. Like, I know I was on the phone with Chris and Marla at 7 a.m. or 11 at night over the holidays, the breaks, and it was just, I was just amazed at how much they did and the dedication they had. And so I know there was a lot of challenges between schools and districts and parents and teachers, and I would always tell everyone that we were so well supported. That is best.
And really just thank the teachers and the staff at our schools, principals, Chris, you and your whole team. I deal a lot with COVID at work, and it's been a long couple of years, but it's been an amazing privilege to work with the school district on the same issues here, the same issues that are facing hospitals, medical centers, companies, and really our whole country. So I really want to thank the district. I'm so proud to be part of this district and see the incredible work that goes on to, take care of the kids and keep everything going. And I think everyone in our country, everything is school district issues and open last year and this entire year being such a success. So this is almost something really a huge team effort. So thank you on behalf of everybody. Absolutely.
Come on up, Proficient. If you come this way, a little more that way I get to go to the house. One, two,
Everything.
Nope. Congratulations again to our H.J. Burns Award recipients. So well deserved. Thank you so much for your years of service, Cindy, to BSD. And thank you to our medical advisory team. It was something that I think is priceless, really, and they volunteered their time. I mean, these are experts in the field and they volunteered their time for all our students and our staff here, and we can't be more lucky and we're so grateful. So thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 18, our consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like pulled? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda? Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Doug. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right. Item 19, administration, part 1 of 2, California Voting Rights Act regarding BSD by area trustee elections.
Good evening, trustees. This evening, we are going to receive a short presentation and information regarding moving to by-area trustee elections from Ilana Mandelbaum, the Deputy County Attorney, and she will also remain after that to answer any questions.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Everyone cleared the room for the most interesting presentation. So I'm here to tell you about the California Voting Rights Act and why so many districts are transitioning to a by trustee area system of elections. So I have a PowerPoint right over here. So this is just an overview of what we're going to cover, just a background on district elections and the different types of election systems, and then an overview of the California Voting Rights Act. So this is probably a review for many of you, but as you know, you currently have an at-large system of elections where the entire electorate within the district boundaries can vote for each of the 5 trustees. And the trustees can live anywhere within the district. Now, a by trustee area system is where the population within distinct boundaries is apportioned into trustee areas, and each area's electorate votes for a trustee who lives in that particular area and represents that area. So the trustee, it will be 5, trustees from distinct areas within district boundaries. Now, the California Voting Rights Act prohibits the use of at-large elections, which is what you have, when they result in a protected class being impaired from electing candidates of its choice or influencing the outcome of an election. Generally speaking, it was enacted to prohibit racially polarized voting. And a protected class is a class of voters who are members of a race, color, or language minority group. What's important is that it is not necessarily about the diversity of the trustees on your board. It's about whether there is a minority coalition anywhere within the district who would have voted for a different candidate who didn't make it up to the board. Proof of intent to discriminate is not required to show a violation of the CVRA, and it's generally it's a lower standard of proof than its federal counterpart. So how a violation is shown is by showing, like I said, a difference in the choice of candidates or other electoral choices preferred by voters in a protected class versus electoral choices preferred by voters in the rest of the electorate. The case law is not terribly clear on what showing is required to meet that burden. And unfortunately, the burden at this point is pretty low. And there are many ways to show that a minority group within the electorate would have preferred a different candidate. So this can be shown by, you have to show that there's a voting block of protected class members. You have to show that there's also a block of voters outside the protected class, and that candidates favored by the protected class have historically not been elected. There is also no limit on how far, at this point in case law, on how far back you can look in history. So again, the statute and case law aren't terribly specific on what satisfies these standards. So this is coming up because we are seeing a sort of proliferation of CVRA litigation. There's a private right of action under the CVRA, so anyone can sue to enforce it. And the prevailing plaintiff has a right to recover attorney's fees and expert witness fees, which is huge. And the defendant notably did not have that right. So there's a huge incentive for plaintiffs' attorneys to take this up and try to find local agencies that they think are violating the CVRA. We have not seen success in local agencies that challenge any of these lawsuits. And fees and costs are generally in the six figures. So if a local agency decides to fight it and go through litigation, you're probably looking at even if you were to be victorious, which the deck is kind of stacked against you, you're looking at very, very high fees and costs. So I've listed out just some key decisions and settlements from various local agencies that have pursued litigation and said, they get a demand letter and say, we don't think we're in violation of the CVRA and we're not going to transition. And they go through litigation. So you can see some of the settlements and judgments that have. There is notably one case, Pico Neighborhood Association versus Santa Monica, and this is the first time that we've seen a public agency successfully defend its at-large system. The Court of Appeals has ruled that the city's at-large system did not violate the CVRA because there was no minority population that, even if the entire population voted together for one candidate, they were all put into one trustee area, they still couldn't have gotten a majority. So that court in that case found that to be distinctive on a distinct set of facts. It's currently on appeal in the California Supreme Court, so we're not quite sure where that's going to come out. So a by trustee election, area election system is presumptively compliant with the CVRA. So because of this, lots of local agencies, including school districts throughout California, have transitioned either because they just want to get into the safe harbor, or they've received a demand letter saying, we think you're in violation, and they've moved to So the district map would be divided into trustee areas based on population numbers and communities of interest, and a number of other factors that are determined in public input. And communities of interest are really largely defined by public input. So importantly, AB 350 established a litigation safe haven if a local agency follows a very distinct transition timeline from start to end. So under AB 350, there's a $30,000 cap on attorney's fees if you were to receive a demand letter and you begin the transition within 45 days of receiving that and complete it within 90 days. You then there's a cap of $30,000 on attorneys. So moving to the process, if you were to decide to transition to a by trustee area system, it starts by adopting a resolution of intent to transition. Again, you, to my knowledge, have not received a demand letter thus far, and so you don't have that urgency. if you did at any time receive a demand letter, you want to do this first step and before you guys need to proceed. The next step is to develop and adopt a map. So you have to have 2 pre-map public hearings over a period of 30 days. And those pre-map public hearings are to get public input on communities of interest and potential ways to break up the territory. Then after those hearings, the demographer will draft up some maps, and you have 2 hearings to consider those draft maps. Then you want, once you select the map that you want to go with, you'll have a map adoption hearing and adopt a resolution that finally says this is our map that we're going. After that, the County Committee on School District Organization has to review the map. There's a public hearing before them as well. I personally haven't seen much challenge there, but theoretically it's possible. So they will review it and then they will vote to approve or deny the proposal. And just some factors that you'll consider in developing the map is maintaining communities of interest, keeping them together, compactness, equal population up to certain standard deviation, planned future growth, visible boundaries, and any other local considerations, again, largely developed through public input. Some other considerations just to know are that the outer district boundaries, of course, don't change. And terms of current board members don't change. So you may, for a period of time, have some board members who were elected under an at-large system and some who are elected under a bi-trustee area system, kind of a hybrid. While, until a certain date, when it'll all fully transition. And let's see, after each federal census, the maps have to be adjusted or at least evaluated to see if they need to be adjusted to ensure equal population. And that happens every 10 years. We just saw one cycle of that, so it wouldn't happen again for another 10 years. And boundaries have to be established no later than 6 months before the next regular primary election. So, too late to do it for November, but you'd be looking at the next. Any questions?
I have a question. So something we wondered about, because in our community, sometimes you're begging people to run for the school board. So it's not like we could necessarily find even one candidate for a by area type of election. So what happens if no one pulls papers for that area?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And my answer isn't going to be a great one, which is that if nobody wants to run for election, then you appoint somebody. If you, let's say, nobody agrees to be appointed, then you'd be looking at having a vacant seat, and you have to, continue trying to appoint or hold elections, and only people who are eligible to fill that seat, so within that particular boundary, can run for those elections.
So you couldn't temporarily make that seat an at-large?
No.
That's already set. That's a rule.
Yes.
And the appointment has to be from within that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the one question that I get asked the most, and it's an important one.
Have you actually seen boards that have a missing seat?
No.
Okay. So they do eventually get somebody in the seat.
Yeah, I have never seen it happen.
Okay.
But I theoretically possible.
In that case, is that appointment for the full 4 years?
In the case of,
If we don't have somebody run from an area as
Right.
designated by a map, then the appointment is for the full 4 years.
Any questions from anyone else? Elizabeth?
I have a question. So you were saying like there's this transition period, right, for at large, that area. How do you decide which areas come up for election first?
So that's a good question. So you would develop that in developing your draft maps and different boards do it different ways. You could do it kind of scripted, there are different ways to do it, but you would sort of think that through in your draft maps. And most boards consider, who's currently on the board. That's a consideration.
Dan?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I have several questions. The first is related to something you spoke of earlier. What happens if there's a board member in a district, either elected or appointed, and that board member moves? For example, if I lived in the northern part of the city and moved to the southern part of the city, presumably a different district, does that member have to give up their seat?
Yes, it would be the same as, if you moved out of district boundaries.
As the court ever looked at that discriminates against those who rent and presumably have at least that expires every year?
That's a great question, and I have not looked into that. I haven't looked into that, so I can't say whether or not the courts have looked at it. I'm happy to do some research on that. If you're interested. That's a great question.
And then is it possible to, when designing these districts, to have a combination of district seats and at-large seats that comprise the board? So for example, divide Burlingame into 3 districts with 2 members that are at-large, 3 that represent districts in order to increase the likelihood of getting someone into district?
Yeah, I'd say it's not necessarily prohibited to do that. But I can't say for sure that it would put you in like the safe harbor litigation one. That said, the risk of litigation is very, it's unique to each district. So like I said, there are some districts that have said, we don't think this really makes sense for our district and we're not. But yeah, I can't, that's not prohibited. I haven't seen it happen.
And then the last question about racially polarized voting. I know you said it's fluid, kind of figure out what it means. When the courts analyze it, do they only look at the history of the election of the school board, or they expand it to see the history of other elections within the district?
They expanded to look at the history of other elections.
So city council, state representative, federal representative as well. And do we know what the protected classes are of Burlingame voters that would qualify as those that would be the victim of racially polarized voting?
That's a good question. I mean, it's an ethnic minority.
Would it be any ethnic minority or just those of certain populations?
It would be any ethnic minority. Yep.
Just to clarify from Trustee DuBois, any ethnic minority is defined by the state of California that represents a voting bloc in a geographic area, correct? So it wouldn't be a combination of any ethnic groups combined as a polyblock. It would be, for example, Asian.
Yes.
Which I believe is one of the subgroups in Burlingame that makes up about 35% of the population. That's the only one I'm aware of, but I haven't looked at the demographics closely enough to see if there's others.
Right, I think the city of Burlingame, when they went to by area, the letter that they received, I think, referred to Asian constituents. And that was the reason why they received the letter, because they weren't represented on the council. Anyone else have a question? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, trustees. So along with tonight's item, actually, yes, Alana, if you would just, no, actually, Kirsten would like that, but if you could just hang out for 1 second to see whether we are moving ahead. So if the trustees have no further questions, if we would like to move ahead with the process, it's been outlined in our previous board agendas as far as the steps, the number of meetings that are required that were in Ilana's presentations this evening. And so we do need the board to direct staff to move ahead or not. If we move ahead, it means that we need to add the following board meeting dates in order to accomplish all of those steps. That would be Tuesday, August 30th, Tuesday, October 4th, and Tuesday, October 18th. And that aligns with the previous timeline to get all of those steps done and distributed to the board during the open board discussion on this item.
That would not be from the 5th of November.
So we really don't have, well, let me be careful the way I say that. If we were to rush and spend all summer working on this, and we could potentially get it done, but I still don't know that we'd meet the deadline to turn it into the board of elections. So it will not be for this November. The amount of work, especially with everybody gone in July, just to get the demographer on board and start doing input sessions to draw maps, we are going to be well into the fall, maybe even beyond the election before we have our district. So it will not affect this November's election. It would affect the next one, which I believe is 24. Is that correct?
So if we approve moving forward, then we essentially begin our safe harbor time.
I believe technically, and Alana can correct me if I'm wrong, that because we've already been discussing this, that we would currently have an argument that we have been pursuing this with positive intent. However, I think the official timeline starts with the passing of a resolution, which would be at the August board meeting. Is that correct?
That's right. If you, given how the discussion we've already had about this, it would, if you were to receive a demand letter, even at this point, we would, if at the end, you know, you go through the transition and they demand the $30,000 in attorney's fees, you would say, listen, you really weren't the impetus behind this transition. Look at, you know, all this work that we're already doing to begin with. That's not said anywhere in law. That just, you know, is a tactic that we've had success with, if it makes sense. So if you aren't, given your position, you know, you don't necessarily have to get it done within the safe harbor timeline, but if you can, it's a good idea. And this, the adoption of the resolution of intent is what sets off that.
Right, okay. So the resolution would be in the August board meeting. Okay, so the vote before us today is to approve staff continuing with this, you know, putting time and effort into this process. Okay, so is the resolution? Right.
So we're just saying to go ahead.
Yes, we're approving that we should still work on this. Is there a motion to approve that? Lisa, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dan? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, item 20, education, EIS, educational experiences. It's a much bigger room, Erica. You should have, you know, yeah.
So I believe at a previous board meeting, the board wanted information on the educational experiences at BIS. So having not been previously at BIS, except when I was a child, I needed to do a little research. So I basically polled our teachers and talked about pre-COVID educational experiences and what they did and what they'd like to do and things like that. And a lot of some concern came up as far as the planning of the educational experiences. So teachers were concerned about cost of transportation and the volume of kids we have, and making sure that all kids were able to go if anyone was going. The planning time and logistics, and part of that is they're subbing almost a couple times a week during their prep time, so they have little prep time to do things like this, as well as you know, can I take my 90 kids, or do I have to take all the 8th graders or all the 7th graders? And I'm thinking of humanities teachers right now. So those are some of the things that initially came up. But they also had some great feedback as far as things that they've done in the past and they'd like to consider doing in the future. And they're listed here, the Natural History Museum, Renaissance Art Museum, Burlingame Farmers Market, and that was music to play on the weekends or on Thursday nights in Burlingame. Almuerzo at local Spanish or Mexican restaurants, and that's our dual language. Teachers talking about really taking them to have an authentic meal and use their Spanish, at a table, sharing a meal together. There's ensembles ballet folklorico in San Francisco. Of course, we did it this year. We visited all the elementary schools with our band and choir. Disneyland workshops and performances with our theater kids. Professional and other theater performances to show our kids that are interested in that aspect, to show them, about professional theater. Leadership conferences for our leadership students, mentors for elementary students, and basically sending groups of middle school students to the elementary schools to read with them or just play with them, just to have someone to look up to. For our SDC class, functional academics and life skills, and going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, things like that with our special day class kids. And really, I really believe in kind of community service. So I always want to encourage my kids to reach out to, the nursing homes, and we have a rehab clinic, down the street from us, doing things, connecting with them maybe for the holidays, or I know through our congresswoman, we did Valentine's for the veterans. And so, reaching out to do community service is important. The list can go on and on. I think I left an empty star there because the experiences kept coming. But I couldn't fit them all on a page. But really the visit, we just did a community service project with Rotary of Burlingame. But there's Academy of Sciences, there's Lawrence Hall of Sciences. I know our Trojan time pre-COVID was, we had kids going to a skateboard park. We had a walking club, things like that. So there's definitely opportunities for the educational experiences. I think it's really important that, we look to our teachers on what best is going to go with the curriculum in the classroom and support, what they're trying to teach them. Again, I certainly want to encourage my teachers to, especially as we move forward, to do some community service and visit, see, that we have, many of us have a very blessed life here in Burlingame. And so it's making sure that, we all remember that not everyone is as fortunate. And so our educational experiences will hopefully come back. I just don't know what that will look like in our future.
Thank you. Anyone have questions? Thank you. All right, item 20B, 2022-23 bell schedules and instructional minutes for the district.
Principal Gilbert, before you go too far. Okay, my green light's on, but. All right, before you go too far, Principal Gilbert. Good evening, trustees. We are bringing forward tonight our bell schedules and instructional minutes for the 22-23 school year. Our elementary schools are very similar to what you have seen in the past. Our TKs at one of the school sites is going to start at 15 minutes later and end 15 minutes later, due to the fact that we'll be hosting another site to help fluctuate for families that will be dropping at 2 sites. However, the ones that are predominantly hosting at their own site, they'll be starting with the same times as the school site. For instance, Lincoln's TK will start at the same time as the rest of Lincoln. Franklin will be hosting McKinley students, so their TK will be starting 15 minutes later than the rest of Franklin to be able to host the McKinley families. However, we have a couple of exciting changes for BIS. The Principal Gilbert is bringing forward tonight, so I'm going to allow her to speak to those really quickly.
So the first is really adjusting our start and end time, not really adjusting anything in between as far as instructional minutes, but really starting 10 minutes later. So families that do have 2 schools to drop their children at have time to get our students to us on time. And we do see a lot of kids that have younger siblings that are late every day. And so it's definitely an impact. And our goal is that after the first trimester to kind of compare this year's tardies to next year's tardies. I have promised my teachers that we're piloting this year, and depending on the improvement of tardies, which I'm hoping happens, we can continue to be kind of eschewed from the elementary schools, so we can get people to school in a timely way.
We do want to let you know that we have worked with Sam's Trans on that too. So our students that do receive public transportation have secured that. And the next component within the school day?
Within the school day is our advisory program. Currently, our students only meet with advisories once a week for 26 minutes. And if it's a student you don't have in a daily class, it's really hard to connect with. And we really have seen this year, especially coming back from COVID, that our kids need that school connection with having a special adult at school that will advocate for them, that will help them organize their backpack, or help them talk to another teacher about an issue they're having. So really working to increase that time, and basically we would be doing advisory 4 mornings a week instead of once a week, and then keeping the Trojan time for that 5th morning, which will be the Trojan time won't change, except that it's going to be in the morning instead of the afternoon. But advisory will be in the morning to kind of get all the students started in a positive way. What do you need to have today? Are you ready? Is it finished? And we'll be doing some executive functioning, organization skills, as well as a lot of social emotional and just connectedness to school. And part of that will be, advisory competitions and some fun too. But really, hoping that we won't have kids feeling lost. They'll feel connected to that group of kids in their class, as well as that teacher or teachers, depending on the circumstance, and incorporating our special ed kids and with our general ed kids, so everyone is part of those advisory lessons and those social emotional opportunities to grow.
How many minutes is the advisory time?
So 3 days a week, it will be 20 minutes. And then 1 day a week, it's 13 minutes.
And are you hoping that the kids stay together 6th, 7th, and 8th with their same advisory group? Or?
That would be spectacular. I don't know logistically how that will work. I mean, I think the teacher would need to change. But that's certainly a nice idea.
Anyone have a question about this? Okay. Oh, I just want to
say this is really exciting. Thanks for showing this creativity.
One other change would be that the block schedule will be going away. Correct?
Yes. So I've been an administrator for a long time, and I've done block schedules, I've done non-block schedules. I'm trained in project-based learning, and really that those block schedules, I have a handful of teachers that really use every minute of those block schedules.
Most of my teachers end up getting kids starting homework or, you know, making up homework and for someone else. And I just really want to maximize our instructional time. Seeing, you know, in math, seeing your child, you know, your student every day, 5 days a week, I think builds on those skills. I think is important, as well as making sure that, you know, kids really are learning or, you know, doing projects and using those instructional minutes as maximizing them every day. And I just think that we have those handful of teachers I talked to before. I talked to the rest of the staff and they were very supportive. And it's not that block scheduling will never come back. I just think we need a lot more training before it does, so we can use every minute to make sure our kids are getting what they need.
Any more questions? Any more, Marla?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erica. Oh, so we need to vote on this.
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to approve item 20B?
Motion to approve item 20B.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Elizabeth. Seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, item 21A, BIS Building 1 conversion to district office and central electric kitchen conceptual design.
Great. This is sort of an exciting item. Before we get started, I just want to point out that our team works so hard together that they're dressing like one another now. I certainly hope that that was planned for our benefit.
Only 2 of 3. Something's wrong here.
I apologize. I didn't get the memo.
Wow, Richard and Tim, I think you're spending a lot of time together.
You better get Chad one of those shirts.
We need a picture of that.
They're following me around.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm literally sitting here thinking I'm seeing double. All right, so on to a fantastic presentation. Go ahead.
Can you zoom in on Amy's? Thank you, trustees, for making time for us today on your last meeting to talk about this topic. I'm going to be I would be introducing the architect, but she is on maternity leave as of Monday. But, you know, we will settle for Chad Hamilton, the principal of the firm, who actually was very, very involved in this process as well. We look forward to Mariana coming back and telling us about her perfect place. Today, we are here to present the conceptual design for your approvals or discussion for action, so that we can come back in the fall with the schematic design and budgets, cost estimates based on that information. When we started this process, we were basing the kitchen that we're showing to match the existing program and match the existing kitchen. What we found during programming after we budgeted was that we're changing our delivery process to what we think our lunch will be. We were lucky enough to be able to bring Chartwell's in, and they said we're the first district that's ever brought them in prior to design instead of afterwards, saying try and fit this room. So the kitchen has grown because it is going to double, hopefully, the number of lunches that we're going to have, as well as making it from scratch. So I just wanted you to see that that's why the kitchen is larger than you may have anticipated. With that, I'll turn it over to Chad.
Great, thank you so much for having me here. Second fiddle, but better than no fiddle at all. As Tim explained, we've been going through a process for the past several months of breaking down and exploring what the program for a new district administrative space would be. So there are basically 3 components to the space. There's the district office per se, the district office itself. There's a boardroom. And so we would be best looking at the previous slide, but zoomed in as much as you could. Yeah, that's great. And then finally, a new central kitchen. The district office as program is about the same size as the office space in the existing district office building, but space is used much more efficiently. You'll notice that there are a few very important functional spaces in the existing district office that are very, very small. We've enlarged those as appropriate. We've brought new departments into the district office.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just a little
I can't see them. Okay. So I can't guide, so I'm sorry, but, so the district office is basically the lower left block and the center space between the gray and. Because I can't see the. Oh, you want to go back? Okay, that'd be great.
Just go slow.
All right.
You know, when you describe it, can you kind of tell me where other stuff is? I'm having a hard time.
So this is the front of the old building one facing the street, like the bike cage. One of the bike cages is right here, and the whole parking lot, and then 3 trees in front of that building are right here. So that faces the residential area at the front of the campus. The administration building is right over here. So this is the one classroom structure that has never been renovated, and as we go down in population, it's not something that we can program academically. So
With the current PLX, like where we're doing all
PLX,
the options right now.
It's called all sorts of things. We call it building one, there's a PLX, and there's an old shop in there. And
Right. So where those offices are is where the TLX is.
Yes, that's correct.
They're with that gate, with the middle gate.
I see.
So north is down on this drawing. West is this way on the screen.
This is the street facing portion.
Yes, that's exactly.
That's Tusana.
Yes.
So
Right, that's the road.
That's the driveway, right?
Yeah.
That's the driveway.
And the Turks are the other.
Right. So the district administrative offices per se are in the lower area, right? And you'll notice that there are a limited number of private offices and a larger collaborative space where most staff will have their desks. Some are hot desks, some are assigned desks. And then between the kitchen and the boardroom, you'll see a nice amount of support space, which includes larger code compliant toilet rooms, a breakout space for staff, and a small conference room. Together, those two spaces comprise about the same amount of space as used by the district office today.
So boardroom also used for professional development and activities. And that would be right next to the boardroom so that we can have closed session right across the hall.
So you see this is a larger footprint.
The entire, well, it is only because it now has a central kitchen added into it. But actually, what Chad is saying is that we programmed this in about the same amount of space. And
those two areas that are the district, what's really the district office, excluding the boardroom, is about the same size as the district office without the boardroom today. And then the boardroom is just very slightly, about 20 feet or so, larger than the existing boardroom.
So in no case it allows for access by the school site to use. So the site is, the room isn't as warm, so it'll be used for more professional help.
So we've developed a secondary entrance, which is within the school fence. So educational staff can easily come to this spot for staff trainings, educational staff training, and other staff training.
What's the gray at the, behind the boardroom?
We've incorporated the IT department into the district office function so that they're more of a collaborative team with the rest of the district staff. And the one space on one side is for IT and server room. The gray space more on the right is storage, file storage.
Actually, HR and business.
Not confidential storage.
In the purple room on the right, that looks like an office is by itself.
So that's part of the kitchen. We'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to talk more about the boardroom, which is so important. As the superintendent, of course, pointed out, we've designed that to be very collaborative. You'll also notice that there's a vertical line dividing the room into two halves. Similar to where the boardroom is now, there's going to be a hard operable partition so that you can have secure confidential meetings with breakout groups on either side of that line. So that boardroom is going to be multifunctional and very flexible. So then, if we go on to what everybody seems the most excited about,
and should be, the new central kitchen, is going to support the district's new food service initiative, which is going to be about, as I understand, healthy eating, eating more fresh foods, and reducing the waste stream. All of that, and we're also solving many of the problems that occur at Franklin, lack of adequate storage, reliance on just-in-time delivery for foods for that day. So we've increased this cold storage, dry storage, and frozen storage, which are those three horizontal sort of spaces to my right. Then the very middle gray part, Chris, behind the bathroom, yes, exactly, is a larger food preparation space. And it's zoned with areas for preparing fresh foods like veggies, salad stuff, preparing more protein-oriented stuff, and then with cooking devices, ovens, rotating ovens, pizza makers, to give the district possibility of a very flexible menu. At this point, we don't know what the menu is going to be because we've worked with a potential vendor, but not with, we haven't selected a vendor, at least during the programming phase. So the goal was flexibility for the whole program. And then the blue space at the very top, there's a blue and a green space, which are simply code required support facilities, an office, a toilet room dedicated to the kitchen, and the janitor.
We also have a conveyor belt washer, so that way it would use a bento box. The students eat out of, and the box would come back.
So,
So we would actually be cooking, filling, sealing those trays, they come back or wash it. So everything.
many central kitchens today, and probably most, certainly many school districts, use one-use, single-use packaging. Even if they do it on site, the batch packaging, wrapping with plastic, sending out to sites and keeping using it. So this will eliminate that waste stream. And the space for that is the very top right, that linear area, which is where all the scullery functions are.
We have set it up so that delivery is coming back into the fridge. Get them on the other side. So there's a signs, doors on both sides. The same with hot, the same with fries.
And conversely, as the food is packaged and prepared, there's a lineup where rolling hot carts or hot or cold carts can be queued up with food for each school and wait there, picked up and delivered and dropped to each site. So
Would that food come back to the next, or that was?
the serving containers
Would
would come back, right?
The hope is that we're not doing individual wrappings in the bento wrap with plastic. We're going out with cans.
Oh, okay.
Cans would come back and the container and the student held device.
So then if we could go to the next slide, we could talk about some of the more site-oriented issues. One of the things we felt was a good idea as a collective team.
Is everybody still oriented?
This
Here's
is not.
the area of the volume of the conference for the kitchen. Here's the street.
So one thing we thought was important was to provide a unique separate entrance for the district office building, the centralized building, distinct from BIS, just to give them a somewhat separate identity. There's an existing parking lot.
And we appreciate too, right?
There's an existing parking lot in front of building one. We've slightly increased the number of spaces, but we've also provided code required accessible space, accessible parking spaces that aren't there now. So again, we've squeezed more into the same area. We want to focus the public entry or the symbolic entry for the new building in the corner of the L of the original building. We're slightly expanding the footprint of the building to make that happen. And we're making use of existing large, mature, beautiful trees that are there now. Again, to kind of reinforce that as a human space, kind of healthy space. that will make the entry a very pleasant place.
Jed just mentioned that we have to make this compliant, and in order to do that, it turns out the parking lot, the spacing between the parking is not to code. So that to make it so that it is compliant as well as level, is will be raising, flattening the whole thing, which will make this steeper.
The green area.
So the entrance for the public is still on the same side as the entrance for district office employees. It's on the same side of the building, just to the right.
Right. So this would be the main public entry.
Okay.
This would be the primary institutional entry, and there's a secondary.
So when you're asking the district office.
Okay.
Right, we don't want to mix district office and adults.
Right, because we do have that gate system where you technically aren't on BIS. You can't access the children from that one ramp.
That will still be available.
Right, so it is an option if we needed the public to come in that way. Right. They wouldn't be.
There's not a path to travel from AB.
It also allows for those gates that are in front of BIS to remain closed during the day, while the district office still has its operations and access to the street.
Right.
It'll be a fire exit.
Okay, because I mean, the way I'm remembering it, there is technically a way for people to enter like the PLX now, right, without having to say I'm on campus at BIS.
True. Yeah, that would be preserved and actually.
Right. Okay, yeah, I think it's still important to have that on that side.
And as Chris was pointing out, we mentioned.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Right.
Hold it closer, maybe.
What's that? Maybe I'll go back to the mic. It's okay, you can just come back.
You think is this new district office gonna have its own separate address from BIS?
Well, now. We will have sign. Not shown in the plan, but there'll be very clear signage. And when we get to painting scheme, we'll paint it in the way it's separate.
So for example, if a fire alarm went off at BIS, would it impact the district office?
Yes.
Vice versa?
Because of this, because of how close we are to the other buildings, we're considered one.
One campus.
Can I ask a question back at the, when we were talking about the kitchen? So you had Chartwell's give their input about what they would ideally want in a prep kitchen. Is there, would the district own everything in the kitchen? So like if there's like a sealer machine or whatever, it's our sealer machine, not Chartwell's.
Right.
They simply use our stuff.
And Ted had his own contract with a kitchen designer, he did a lot of trouble with common.
Okay.
So we've done quite a few kitchen spaces and cafeteria food service spaces. We worked with this guy for 10 years at least. They've done some award-winning spaces down south, down in San Jose area. Very, very experienced people. And so it was really a give and take. What could you do? That's a good idea. Maybe you can do that better. So it was a design process, not just chocolate saying this.
Right.
Yes.
So is the bike cage everything?
So I think it may have been determined that there's a better location safety wise for the bike cage. And I think we're working on the final implementation.
Over by the auditorium.
Oh, by the auditorium.
Right, so the bikes don't have to, the majority of bikes come from that direction. They don't have to cross entering and exiting cars going on the parking lot.
There will be some functional things in that green space. We will need stormwater retention, biospheric type things. We'll want some kind of landscaping just to enhance the front of the building for the trees.
I think those have been trees.
Okay.
We can take more questions. I'm just gonna summarize what the next step is, but I can do that after.
I think it's important, so I know there's also some newer trustees. So we started this process somewhat accidentally last December. We were looking and we're doing a property study with DCG right now to determine property that could be accessed or reused. And we initially thought that the current district office was not buildable or usable because of the Hetch Hetchy reservoir line that's underneath that. It turns out that that consultant has determined with the city in a partnership that actually it is buildable. We don't think the best use of that property is to rebuild or spend a whole lot of money to redo a district office that is old and tough, rather to have it co-located close to an educational space and be able to house more district employees than we currently are, as well as the most important part that the chat already pointed out, have a district kitchen. We have not had a district kitchen that's functional for cooking and deploying meals. Our district kitchen right now that used to serve 800 meals a day is actually behind that folded wooden wall right there, and has a whole lot of old broken down equipment. And when I say broken down, I mean literally a lot of it doesn't function. And we are now providing 3,000 meals a day now for all of them are free. So the state recognizes this is a problem in California, that they encouraged us to basically contract out food services. Most districts went that route and they got rid of their ability to cook and prepare and deliver food on their own. So they are now providing money and incentives to go back to providing better meals, locally provided meals, and even though it'll still be done with a vendor, cooking them and making them more sourced locally and as organic and from scratch. They have a new process called near scratch. Some parts are prepared, but then they cook it here on site. And so this central kitchen will do that while being all electric, which is the other thing that the state wants us to do. They don't want to have gas kitchens anymore. This is an all electric kitchen.
Chris, how do those incentives from the state come to us?
So we apply for them as we do it. So there's kitchen modernization and construction incentive money coming out. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to obviously offset this. But here's the other way to think of this when we look at the tranches. This building was scheduled for modernization to be turned into a space that frankly, the number of students utilizing that space for those programs now is very little at a double-digit $1 million price tag, right? Versus, and then we also had a central kitchen and it was going to be built off of Franklin's. So this actually lowers the total cost of construction and still accommodates all of the needs of the district. So it just turned out to be a good happenstance. This project was not on our slate 2 years ago. In this tranche, we were going to rebuild a Franklin central kitchen, which has been very complicated and a little bit difficult, as well as try to modernize the district office, as well as try to put in new student spaces. So we have one project.
There's a part not shown here that is adding an emergency generator, which will keep the full room cold and allow us the server room operational so that we have
In case there's a power shutdown for fires.
when there's a power shutdown.
Yes.
And I do want to point out one thing that hasn't pointed out is a drop off, the dumpster enclosure, like for me, that's what it says. But it's as far away from the door as possible, as close to the kitchen as possible. The way that we're gonna program it is the dump truck will come up, drive to the top, pick up the garbage from GIS, turn around, come back down, and go straight in to get this garbage. It's been a dilemma with them because of their 8-foot wide forks have to go directly and straight in. That is a good solution.
So this will be no more disruption than regular traffic from the school site. And you were correct, essentially the same.
But it's going to add more, which is now a requirement, it's no longer optional.
So our next step, once the board approves the programming things, would be to move into what we call schematic design, which is where we begin to explore the building in 3 dimensions, start to incorporate structural, mechanical, electrical, building infrastructure and systems that support it, how those fit into the building, and start to explore technically, and then move forward, hopefully, to a construction start about this time next year.
If you go back one slide. Right now, when people visit the district office, they walk into the glass atrium, and you go right to the district office, you go left to the top. It will be the same, that's the exception. You walk in, you're either in the public space, or you come through either this door or this door. It's that same transition. We are adding some sort of glass storefront here that will be a beacon of hope. Solutions. But people will still know where it goes. A lantern.
The guiding light.
We talked about structural things, but as part of the assessment of this, where do you look into the structure?
We have at a conceptual level, and we're going to be looking at, we haven't done calculations, for example. We've done it rule of thumb and conceptual wise. So we know what kind of things will have to be done. I've written a narrative to describe the general kind of upgrade, structural upgrades that it will be. But then we'll be moving into the kind of structural work that the DSA is required to review and approve of this.
The sugar is the same team, digital and 226. It's a very similar construction, the only piece of the top off the front. But if that detail happens in the next phase. First, you look at the concept, now you do the detail. We will have to make some betterments. And we will be making betterments by this design by having more skill in some places.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Chad. So this is something we need to vote on. If there aren't any more questions, is there a motion to approve item 21A?
The motion to approve item 21. EIS building one conversion to district office and central electric kitchen conceptual design.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Doug. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Is Erica still here?
I think.
Oh, she just left. Okay. I want to make a comment that with a fully functional kitchen like that, that's actually a great opportunity to teach kids, about how a kitchen works, and have kids even volunteer to help do things, to make the food. Or, it's just, I think really functional in terms of the program that you can create, that utilizes that space too, not just for making food for the kids, but for teaching. All right, thank you.
Only if you get us matching shirts.
Love the uniform.
Lots of you asked for it.
Item 21B, contract between BSD and Alliance Redwoods Conference Grounds for outdoor education.
Tonight we bring forward a contract for the 22-23 school year for sixth grade to attend outdoor education. This contract is for 5 days and 4 nights. The cost is $525 per student. That does not include the chaperone fee of $374. There needs to be 1 chaperone for every 7 students and 1 teacher for every 30 students. This does not include transportation or the teacher stipends. The minimum obligation for the 2 contracts, it is broken up between 2 because they cannot accommodate our full 6th grade class due to staffing at the outdoor camp, is $160,000. There is a non-refundable deposit of $40,000 between the 2 contracts, which needs to be submitted by mid-August. Principal Gilbert surveyed for staff to see if they would be interested in participating, and they said yes, and has also reached out to parents, and she believes she does have enough parent volunteers. And and parents are willing to fundraise for the total amount. So, are there any questions?
No, just thank you for making this happen. I know it's really important to the community outside of the normal scope, but I'm excited to see this.
I will pass that on to Principal Gilbert. All I did was read the contract and put it on the board agenda. I will not take credit, though I will be writing the deposit check.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, if there aren't any more questions, is there a motion to approve 21B?
I would like to.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item 21C, 2022-2023 budget adoption.
Tonight, we bring forward the final budget of the 22-23 school year. There were no changes made after the public hearing and presentation at our last meeting. The changes we were hoping to make, the minor changes to commitments, was not updated. SACS is still not working at 100%, but the county office is happy with the budget as presented, and they will accept that. The only thing I would like to note is that we still do not have the governor's July 1 budget. We've heard that it has been released and it's on track to be approved by the June 30th cutoff. And it's looking like we will be moving forward with the 45-day August revision for the changes that are anticipated. Were there any questions on the budget?
In terms of the governor's proposal, I read that the legislature proposed a different budget. And do you have any sense of if that they're actually going to compromise and include some of his, some of theirs, or is there a crystal ball to guess which way it's going to go?
I didn't bring that, but the biggest thing that I was reading earlier today was noting what is really missing is the facilities dollars. And that looks to be the one thing that may not be included, though I couldn't get a read from any of our sources on nobody is willing to say which way because of the way it was basically pushed through to make the June 15th deadline. That's why we're not seeing a lot of information on it right now. Expectation is, but nothing updated.
Okay, I'm not holding my breath that it's going to stay the same. I think it'll be different. Yeah. Okay, any questions or comments about that? All right, we didn't vote on this one. Okay, we need to vote on item 21C. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve item 21C, 2022/2023 budget adoption.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item 21D, resolution number 2021/22-25 for budgetary increases and transfers.
Tonight, we bring forward resolution 2021-22-25. This enables the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools to make transfers between our fund balances if we have any negative cash balances at the end of the fiscal year close. And this is a required annual resolution.
Any questions? All right. Is there a motion to approve item 21D?
I'll move to approve item 21D.
Thank you, Doug. Is there a second? Thank you, Lisa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 21E, resolution 2021/22-24, commitment of funds to Fund 17 for textbook adoptions.
Tonight, we bring forward resolution 2021-22-24, which will allow us to transfer $500,000 from the general fund to Fund 17 towards our textbook adoptions, which we will start building up for our next adoption. This is in order to be mindful of the fact that we need to, for the 22-23 school year, keep our reserves under 10%. And this was one of the first commitments that we would like to make.
Okay, any questions about this? No, okay, is there a motion to approve item 21E? Thank you, Lisa, is there a second? Second, thank you, Elizabeth, all those in favor? Aye, thank you. Item 21F, resolution number 2021/22-27, commitment of funds to Fund 14 for future maintenance repair.
Tonight, we bring forward resolution 2021-22/27 to commit funds from the general fund to Fund 14, our deferred maintenance fund. We would like to transfer $1 million from the general fund into Fund 14 to help offset the cost of the door locks for maintenance and safety at all our sites. The projects are underway at VIS in McKinley this summer.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve item 21F?
I'll move to approve item 21F.
Thanks, Doug. Is there a second? Lisa seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item 21G, resolution number 2021/22-26 regarding the education protection account.
So tonight we bring forward this resolution and Superintendent Mount Demetrius is passing out the attachment, which I left off of the actual resolution, so I apologize for that. And this resolution is committing our education protection account, or EPA funds, which are part of our budget. So I am requesting that the board approves the EPA resolution of 21-22-26 for the 22-23 budget year. And I would just like to note that all of our EPA funds are spent on certificated salaries of specifically our classroom teachers.
Can you say in a nutshell what EPA is? Is there a way to do that?
So Proposition 30 came in November of 2012, and it separates state funding into traditional state aid and EPA revenues. We need to track our education protection account revenues and expenditures separately. So because
well, where does the EPA money, where do those funds come from?
the EPA funds, it's a calculation in our LCFF calculator. It's broken out each budget in and cycle. We do that, and then the state tells us what our allocation of EPA funds are, and those are protected funds for education.
Okay, so because we submit our LCAP, they give us money based on what we request?
It's part of our LCFF, our
So EPA is just one of the funding streams for our LCFF. It's just that it's required to spend specifically on providing education to children who can't spend it on anything else.
Yeah.
So we have to call out that we're doing that every year.
Okay, I guess I'm just wondering how they get to this number to give to us.
That's part of the formula. We're told based on inputs that Amanda puts in what the allocation of LCFF of EPA is.
Okay, yeah, it has to do with your unduplicated concentration supplemental, and that's why it changes
That's what I was looking for.
annually.
Okay, it's based on that.
And it will be recalculated mid-year and then after the close of the year. So if they determine that they gave us too many EPA funds last year, it's really done as a negative, but you receive additional LCFF funding. So for all the EPA money,
they minus it from your LCFF, your basic aid. And so really it's an accounting, like a in and out, so you don't actually receive less funding. Okay, I see. It's just what's earmarked. Yeah, is different. Yes, okay. Thank you. All right, so we need to vote on item 21G. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve item 21G.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Elizabeth, seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. 21H, Deferred Maintenance Program 5-Year Plan 22/23.
So tonight we bring forward our deferred maintenance plan for the 22-23 school year through the 26-27 school year. I would like to note that this plan was made before the board adopted the resolution to commit funds to the deferred maintenance plan. So this plan will be updated with the $1 million contribution and the door locks, so it will not come back for board approval. The estimated transfer over the next 5 years, in addition to the $1 million, is set at $650,000. This plan will come back to the board and be updated annually as a 5-year rolling plan.
Okay. Any more? Yes, nothing. All right, any questions about this? No? All right. Is there a motion to approve item 21H?
I'll make a motion to approve item 21H for maintenance program 5-year plan.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Doug seconds. Is there, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. All right. Item 22A, Local Control Accountability Plan.
Good evening, thank you. We are bringing back our local control accountability plan this evening for the vote. We brought it into our May 31st board meeting for a public hearing and first read. We have worked with the county. There were a few updates with regards to just updating some of our dashboard data. We did have some updated information that we were able to bring in. And then we updated, we had a better idea with calculations with regards to our curriculum, which all of our curriculum has been ordered and is on its way. We are very excited about that. And then Ms. Bonnevert is going to speak a little bit about the budget overview for parents that is coming your way with the handout right now.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Benitez has passed to you an updated LCFF budget overview for parents. We received a call from the county office today that we needed to make some changes in the actual LCAP document on how we were charging some of our funds for our highest need students. So I brought you this sheet that shows the updated expenditures for our high need students in the LCAP. Before today, some of those funds we had used COVID funding, so federal funding in the LCAP. And what that did is we did not spend all of our supplemental funds earmarked in the 22-23 LCAP. We also had a carryover. If you look down, this carryover did not change. But at the very bottom on the funds for high need students, the 21-22, we spent $575,000 less than we received, and the state would not approve our LCAP with that much carryover from, and the year before, 2021, we had a contribution of 0. We spent 500, so it's this rolling average, and their concern is that we are not spending our supplemental funds on our highest need students. So we updated our plan. I worked with the county, and they are comfortable with this, and we will send the plan to the state. And we do realize that even though we have federal restricted funds, we also receive certain LCFF funds that need to be spent first.
Is this one also just accounting, meaning we're switching which dollars we're using for which purposes, but we're not changing the budget.
Yes, and as I was talking to the county office today, the conversation, I was like, but we're gonna use our COVID funds, and she's like, this is the budget, make the change. I was like, well, so that's really what it is. There were some small changes. The only thing that would change out of the presentation that you saw is that we did add in one more. I did move in one of our site instructional aides or positions into this, the LCAP, which had not originally been in there. Get it out.
So trustees, one of the differences that Amanda's illustrating is when they say it's the budget, it's the plan. The actual expenditure of funds to true up the year so that we make sure that all the plans are actually in the financial system is called fiscal close, and we start that July 1 through September for this school year. So we'll be making sure that all of those expenditures are lined up with all different reports and everything that you've approved. So at this point, it's just a change on paper, but you'll see it become, well, you might not even notice it becoming a reality because it's just part of our financial processes. It'll actually align with this once we make those changes.
Okay, any more questions about this? All right, is there a motion to approve item 22A? With these updated numbers?
I move to approve 22A with the updated numbers.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? All right, Lisa seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item 22B, specifications of the election order resolution number 2021/22-23 and elections service agreement with the San Mateo County Elections Office for the November 2022 board elections.
Thank you, trustees. The board is asked to approve the specifications of the election order resolution attached and determine if a tie vote will be determined by a runoff election or by a lot, and the elections agreement with the County of San Mateo for November 8th, 2022 board elections. So not only are you approving what we're submitting to the county, but we're asking that you approve that any runoff is done by lot, which has been the practice of the district. The main reason for that is that a runoff election, of course, costs a significant amount of district fund. We have done things by lot since I've been here. For example, the seating rotation on the board has been done by lot. We did it virtually actually when I got here and literally pulled things out of it. So that has been the tradition of the district. So we would ask for to do that.
All right, any questions?
Sorry, what triggers runoff? Is it? It's not just an actual tie, right? Is it less than? We're only talking about a tie.
So the language of the resolution assumes a competitive race, meaning that multiple people are running for each seat. And in the event of a tie, literally the same number of votes that we would be drawing lots out of a hat. However, in the case of no contested election, typically we determine the seating place of trustees by lot.
Got it. Okay. We don't need to talk too much about this one.
Yeah. All right, we still need to vote on it though. So item 22B, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve 22B.
Thank you, Doug. Is there a second? A second. Elizabeth seconds. All those in favor? Aye, thank you. Item 22C, resolution 2021-22-29, school safety and gun violence.
So trustees, for your consideration and discussion is whether the board would like to pass a resolution about school safety and gun violence. This particular resolution came up, of course, after the Uvalde shooting. So the resolution is here for the trustees to discuss and determine whether it pass.
Would anybody like to read this resolution that's being presented?
Burlingame School District Resolution 2021-22-29 in support of school safety. Whereas our public schools are charged not only with supporting student achievement, but also providing a foundation for mental and physical health, personal growth, and civic engagement. And whereas student safety is a prerequisite for consistently high levels of academic and social development, and whereas violence and harassment can not only alienate students from their peers and their environment, thereby impeding learning, but also cause injuries and fatalities. And whereas in its May 2017 study, Indicators of School Crime and Safety 2016, the National Center for Education Statistics, found that 21% of students aged 12 to 18 said they were bullied at school. And whereas in the same study, 16% of high school students reported carrying a weapon at any point during the previous 30 days, and 4% reported carrying a weapon on campus during the previous 30 days. And whereas the study also noted that 4% of students had access to a loaded gun without adult permission, either at school or away from school during the school year. And whereas the horrific prospect of school shootings made an indelible impression on the national consciousness with the Columbine Massacre of 1999. And whereas more than 150,000 Americans have experienced a shooting on campus since the Columbine tragedy, and hundreds of lives have been lost as a result. And whereas gun violence on school campuses, while relatively rare, represents a particularly egregious and unacceptable threat to the lives of students, teachers, and staff across the country. And whereas the recent massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, 21 lives were taken and shocked the conscience of the nation. And whereas gun violence in schools occurs in America with a frequency and severity that is unparalleled anywhere in the world. And whereas exposure to trauma can adversely affect a child's health for the rest of their lives. And whereas Burlingame School District supports the right of our students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from violence and harassment, especially life-threatening forms of violence. And whereas all students, regardless of background, deserve access to services that support and enhance their physical, mental, and emotional health. And whereas safe schools provide an environment where teaching and learning can flourish, disruptions are minimized, violence, bullying, and fear are absent. Students are not discriminated against. Expectations for behavior are clearly communicated, and standards of behavior are maintained, and consequences for infractions are consistently and fairly applied. And whereas the most effective approach to creating safe school environments is a comprehensive, coordinated effort, including school-wide, district-wide, and community-wide strategies supplemented with legislation, resources, and support at the state and federal legislation level. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Burlingame School District has completed and holds regular drills as prescribed in both school site and district emergency plans, and that said plans involve all school district personnel, law enforcement, fire and medical rescue personnel, emergency management personnel, and others essential to preventing, mitigating, or resolving any potential crisis. Be it further resolved that the Burlingame School District reviews school site discipline rules and procedures to ensure they are appropriately enforced, and that the student handbooks explaining codes of conduct, unacceptable behavior, and disciplinary consequences are given to all students, parents, and caregivers. Be it further resolved that Burlingame School District will continue to work with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, local law enforcement, mental health professionals, parents, students, teachers, and staff to take any threats of violence seriously, and to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support a positive school climate free from harassment and violence. Be it further resolved that Burlingame School District urges the state of California and the United States Congress to invest in wraparound services to prevent bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence in our schools, and to provide funding for our programs and staff, such as counselors, nurses, and psychologists that support students' mental, physical, and emotional health. Be it further resolved that Burlingame School District asks the United States Congress to pass specific legislation that reduces the risk of and severity of gun violence on school campuses and repeals the prohibition against data collection and research on gun violence by the U.S. Center for Disease Control, CDC. Be it further resolved that Burlingame School District urges the state of California and the United States to implement common sense measures that prioritize student safety and environments where all students have the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive. Passed and adopted this 14th of June, 2022.
If we pass it.
If we pass it. I did that last time too.
Thank you for reading that, Lisa. It was long, but I think we needed to read every word of that. Okay, so anybody have a question about the resolution or a comment?
I was just curious where the language came from. Is it something that other districts have adopted? Is it something?
It was actually a CSBA resolution that they actually had. I think it's actually from 2018, and it was shared with our county school board association, given like put out to the districts in the county as an example resolution. And so it was just updated to reflect the Uvalde shooting. It had referred to a different shooting at the time that it was constructed. Anything else? Well, I'd like to make the motion to approve item 22C, resolution 2021/22-29, school safety and gun violence. Is there a second? Elizabeth seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, item 22D, discussion on flying the pride flag during the month of June.
Good evening, trustees. This item is for trustees to discuss whether Burlingame School District would like to fly the pride flag annually in support of equity and inclusion for the LGBTQIA+ community during June, commonly known as Pride Month. This question is raised as the majority of school districts in the county and the County Office of Education now incorporate this as a common practice in district offices. Just so that the trustees understand, this item was actually brought by a number of staff members to the superintendent. I inquired with the county whether this was actually correct. It turns out that it is. So the majority of districts in our county, at least their district office, some school districts actually fly at their school site, do fly the pride flag for the month of June. Specifically in support of their families and children and households that identify as the LGBTQIA+ community. So that was actually something that I wasn't aware of. We do not have a pride flag, so this is not something that we could start tomorrow. However, staff asked that we bring it forward for the board to discuss and determine whether, I don't know how quickly or when, whether we have time still this year or in future years at Burlingame.
All right, this is a discussion item. Anybody have a comment about it? Okay. So I think how it would normally work is when June comes around, the next time we pass a resolution acknowledging that it's Pride Month, and then fly it.
We didn't do a resolution this year. I think we've been celebrating at all of our schools and on social media. One of the things that I always get a little concerned about is a lot of resolutions we tend to just lose track of all of them at some point, so they mean less and less. So I did actually not put a resolution about LGBTQIA Pride Month. We just made an effort to make sure that it was being celebrated district-wide in a very intentional way, which our schools and teachers did a wonderful job with. So we don't actually need to bring an annual resolution. This is literally a discussion of whether the board just wants to make it practice that we fly it during the month of June.
Okay.
So we don't take a vote.
No, this is not a vote. It's just giving your opinion
You're directing staff at this point. Of course, it does need to be a majority of the board, so if you want to do a straw vote, that's fine. But it is direction to staff, the majority of the board wanted to do it.
I also support it.
Okay, all right, looks like everybody supports this proposal.
Great, so that was one item. I did hear some discussion about whether it was the traditional flag.
Yes.
Trustee Wong,
Oh, yeah.
or whether,
No, so my preference would be that it would be the progress flag.
great, so just to clarify for everybody the community, and I say that because it is my community, I have trouble keeping up with all the flags. We have always used flags to signify different parts of the sub-communities in the community. The progress flag is the original Pride flag, which was of course created in San Francisco with a series of chevrons that represent those folks that, even though they're part of the community, have been on the receiving end of less visibility and more violence, particularly those in the community that identify both as queer or gay and are Black, brown, or trans. And so it has a series of chevrons in the colors of Black, brown, pink, and purple, indicating those different communities in a chevron across the traditional Pride flag. So there was a question of whether that would be a better flag to use rather than the traditional Pride flag. Trustee Wong.
So my preference would be the progress flag. Are you guys aware of the difference? Yeah, the large one there, that's the progress flag. Is that something students can see?
Right now, we're just talking about the district office. We know that the districts that do it all fly at the district office, not necessarily at school sites. I think that if principals and staff want to engage in that conversation at their school sites, then I think that that's something that they can definitely do. I think tonight's discussion is just whether you want us to get one. But I'm certainly open to principals and their staff.
Since it was brought up by staff, maybe we
Yes.
could do a survey of staff.
I will talk to principals. That'll be something that they can certainly investigate.
Okay.
And they tend to now, unlike previously, we've managed to do things as a district. So when one school site does something, that others, they all do together.
Okay. Great. Any more comments about this item? All right. Item 23, public statements related to non-agenda items. There's no one else here.
Ms. Bell?
Are there any
No.
slips for this?
No, President Wong.
Okay. All right, move to item 24, board requested items. We've got a couple things on there. Okay, we can cross out field trips.
So, also, the board did request previously about asking to look at the food service program and the contract. And I asked the board to please wait until they saw the direction that the district is trying to move in. That was first started tonight by seeing the new central kitchen. So in August, Chartwells will come back to the board and be presenting a proposed extension to their contract that's modified, that will be occurring under business services. So Amanda will be presenting that with Chartwells. So we will be scheduling that for August, as well as an overview and an annual reminder to the board and to the community of what our other major business partner, which is Champions, is providing.
All right, so we're not adding the discussion about food to the board requested items because it's already planned.
I'm just letting the board know it had come up as things they wanted to hear more about, and so I didn't put it on this list, but they are up.
Okay, so whoever brought that up before, that's satisfying, that's fine. Wait for August to do that. Someone who's not on the board anymore? Oh, okay. Well, it's coming in August, so there you go. So the only thing left on there is the presentation on early literacy. Is there anything else you would like to add? No? Okay. So we are going to actually adjourn back to closed session again, item 25.